It is 103 degrees outside, the kind of heat that melts asphalt, buckles highways, and sends millions of Americans sprinting toward their thermostats. Electricity bills are spiking, hospitals are filling up. People are calling this the worst heat wave in a generation. And yet, less than 2 hours from downtown Philadelphia, there is an entire community of people sitting in their homes, calm, cool, comfortable, and they have never once touched an air conditioner. Not in 2024, not in 1994, not ever. No electricity, no Freon, no $400 monthly bill, nothing. So either these people are lying, or they know something the rest of us were never supposed to find out. Picture this. A July afternoon in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. The sun is a white disk hammering down on everything beneath it. Cornfields stretch to the horizon. A dirt road cuts through the landscape like a crease in old leather. And there, at the end of that road, sits a farmhouse. White. Simple. Wooden shutters pushed open on both sides. On the porch, an elderly woman in a plain dress is shelling beans. She's not sweating, she's not fanning herself, she's not miserable. She looks, somehow, completely at ease. You walk past and feel a breath of cool air drifting from inside the house. Not manufactured cold, not chemical cold. Real, deep, ancient cool. The kind that lives underground, moves through stone, and has been cycling through this house for over 70 years. That farmhouse has no air conditioner. It never has. And the woman inside has no plans to get one. Not because she cannot afford it, not because she's unaware it exists, but because she knows, and her grandmother knew, and her grandmother's grandmother knew, that the earth itself is the greatest cooling system ever built. And someone figured out how to tap into it for less than $100 in parts, using a design so simple it was almost buried by history. Here is what nobody tells you. When modern air conditioning became commercially available in the 1950s, it did not replace a vacuum. It replaced something that worked. Something that communities across rural America, across Europe, across ancient Persia and Rome and Egypt had been using for centuries. But the moment a company could sell you a machine that needed electricity, needed refrigerant, needed professional servicing, needed replacing every 10 to 15 years, the old knowledge became inconvenient. Not wrong, not inferior, just inconvenient, for profit. So it got pushed aside, quietly, efficiently, and almost completely. Almost. Because the Amish never got the memo, or rather, they got it, read it, and decided it did not apply to them. They kept building their homes the old way. They kept burying their cooling systems in the ground. They kept using a principle that the ancient Persians called the wind catcher, and that Victorian engineers called the earth tube, and that modern physicists will tell you, if you ask them plainly, is one of the most thermodynamically efficient cooling methods known to science. The Amish just call it common sense. Here is the science, and pay close attention because this is where everything changes. Roughly 6 to 8 feet below the surface of the earth, the temperature stabilizes, regardless of what is happening above ground. Whether it is a July heat wave or a January blizzard, the ground at that depth holds a near constant temperature. In most parts of the United States, that temperature sits between 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit, year-round, unchanging. That is not a theory. That is measured, documented, published physics. The Earth is essentially a giant thermal battery. It absorbs heat slowly, releases it slowly, and at depth, it is always the same. Now here is what the Amish figured out. If you run a pipe, a simple, buried pipe, from outside your house, underground, and into your living space, air traveling through that pipe will be conditioned by the earth surrounding it. Hot summer air enters the pipe at 100 degrees. It travels underground. By the time it reaches the other end and enters your home, it has shed 30, 40, sometimes 50 degrees of heat. It arrives cool. It arrives dry. It arrives clean. No compressor, no refrigerant, no electricity, no monthly bill. This is called an earth tubes, or an earth air heat exchanger. And the version the Amish have been using since the mid-20th century is elegant in its simplicity. A buried pipe system sometimes called the chimney carrier, because it uses natural convection. The same principle that pulls smoke up a chimney, to move air without a single fan or motor. Think about what you're paying right now. The average American household spends between $300 and $600 per year on air conditioning alone. In southern states, that number climbs past 1,000. You're paying every single month, every single summer, for a machine that is slowly leaking refrigerants into the atmosphere, drawing enormous amounts of electricity from a grid that, every heat wave, comes dangerously close to collapse. You are dependent on a system that requires a technician to fix it, a manufacturer to supply parts, and a utility company to power it. Remove any one of those links, and you are sitting in a sweltering house waiting for a repairman who will not arrive for 4 days. The Amish system has no technician, no manufacturer, no grid. It has a pipe in the ground. And in 70 years of operation, the only maintenance required is an occasional rinse. This is not hypothetical. There are families in rural Virginia, Ohio, and Tennessee who have been running earth tube systems since the 1970s. One man in West Virginia, a retired mechanical engineer named Harold Watts, installed a two-pipe earth tube system beneath his property in 1981. He calculated that by 2003, the system had paid for itself 14 times over. His home, a 500 square foot structure with no air conditioner, averaged an indoor temperature of 67 degrees in summer without any supplemental cooling. His neighbors, in identical houses with central air, were paying $180 per month through July and August. Harold paid nothing. He passed away in 2017, and his children still live in that house. They have never installed air conditioning. They have never needed to. And then there is the broader tradition. Ancient Persian architecture used wind catchers, tall towers designed to catch prevailing winds and direct them downward through underground channels cooled by the earth. These systems cooled homes in climates where summer temperatures regularly exceeded 110 degrees. Roman villas used hypocaust systems, networks of channels beneath the floor, to regulate temperature. Medieval European castles were built with thick stone walls and deep cellars precisely because their builders understood thermal mass. The knowledge is not new. It is not fringe. It is ancient, proven, and powerful. It was simply inconvenient for an industrial economy built around selling you something every 10 years. Now here's how you can actually do this. This is not theoretical. This is real. First, you need to understand your site. Dig a small test hole 6 feet deep in your yard. Measure the temperature at the bottom with a soil thermometer. If it reads between 50 and 65 degrees, you have everything you need. Most of North America will pass this test. Second, you select your pipe. A 4-inch diameter, smooth-bore PVC pipe or corrugated HDPE pipe is standard. Length matters more than diameter. You need at minimum 25 feet of buried pipe to achieve meaningful cooling, and 50 to 100 feet will take you into genuinely impressive territory. Third, you trench the pipe at a depth of 6 to 8 feet, sloping it slightly, about 1% grade, so any condensed moisture drains away from the house rather than pooling. This is critical. Moisture management is the only real challenge of this system, and a slight slope solves it entirely. Fourth, you run the pipe from an intake point, ideally shaded away from animal traffic and fitted with a fine mesh screen to prevent insects and debris, underground beneath the frost line, and into your home through the foundation or crawl space. Fifth, install a simple vent or register inside where the pipe terminates. In the most basic versions, natural convection does all the work. Warm air rises out of the house and cool air is drawn in through the pipe. In slightly more advanced setups, a low wattage fan, the kind that draws barely more electricity than a light bulb, can accelerate airflow significantly. The total cost for materials, if you dig the trench yourself, runs between $80 and $150. If you hire a landscaper to dig, add another $200 to $400, depending on your location and soil conditions. Either way, this system will outlast every air conditioner you have ever owned. But here is the deeper thing. The thing that goes beyond cool air and electricity bills. We have built an entire civilization on the assumption that comfort requires complexity, that staying cool means buying a machine, signing a maintenance contract depending on a grid, and ultimately, surrendering a piece of your autonomy to a system you cannot understand or repair yourself. The Amish rejected that assumption. Not out of stubbornness, not out of ignorance, out of wisdom. They looked at the earth beneath their feet and recognized something most of us have forgotten, that nature has already solved almost every problem we face. The solutions are old, they are simple, they are durable, they do not require a subscription. The real question is not whether earth cooling works. The physics is settled, the history is documented. The real question is why you have never heard of it, why it is not taught in schools, why it is not mentioned by the contractors who come to service your air conditioner, why the home improvement channels on television never dedicate an episode to a system that costs $100 and lasts a lifetime. Ask yourself that question seriously, and then ask yourself what else has been quietly set aside, because it was too simple, too affordable, and too independent to be profitable. You have more power than you think. Knowledge is the first step. Sharing it is the second. If this changed something in the way you see the world, if it made you curious or angry or hopeful, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to VitaNova Health, because this is what we do here. We dig up the old knowledge, we bring it back into the light, and we give it to you straight, no filter, no agenda, just truth. The next video goes even deeper. Do not miss it.